Welcome to today's episode, Purpose and Potential, building on what sets you apart. And in this conversation that Greg and I will have together, we're diving deep into how instinct drives your business and how discovering what you're truly good at can unlock your purpose. Many times that's also based on your story. Often the decisions that you make naturally, the ones guided by intuition and a deep sense of knowing, are the very things that propel your business forward. And by tapping into those instincts, you begin to understand your unique strengths. And from there, identifying your purpose always becomes a lot clearer as you're building on what the foundation of what sets you apart. So today we will explore how to harness some of those innate talents to align your work with a deeper sense of meaning and direction. So stay tuned. This podcast is brought to you by DJ Works Media and HalftimeSuccess.com, offering resources and insights for those at mid-career or the halftime of life. Explore our diverse categories, including courses, coaching, health, music, software, and travel. We're here to help you make this stage of life your best ever. So get our new articles, downloads, and podcasts by signing up for weekly updates at goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Well, hello, everyone. With Greg and I together today. Once a month, we come on together. So thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Good to see everybody.
I love the topic today because we're putting in this topic of uniqueness along with our purpose. And it's a great topic. It was really fun just talking through some of the principles today. So I'm excited to just kind of dive in here. And one of the things that we started out with, of course, is focusing on of that uniqueness and how to find that and on the power of story. So we'll delve into that. And so why don't you discuss first kind of your thoughts of the power of story and the uniqueness? Because it's always fun to hear from you.
Don Miller's book, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. There is Story Brand is that, but there is a book called The Power of Story, which is very, very powerful on writing and in how important story is. But it's important for all of us in fact, I need to reread some of these books. I've reread them several times. But it's so important to validate our own story with our own uniqueness. And this is part of what my mission is helping people validate their story, validate their experience, because they're discounting them at this point in their life.
Right. So the power of story is it helps us figure out why we're here and where we're going. Mm-hmm. And pretty much all marketing is telling a story about a product or a service and why it was developed and why it meets the needs of the people you're marketing to. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us probably start our businesses because we need to make money. But somewhere in there, we have instincts that we just sense, or maybe we feel that we could be successful if we do whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And, some years down the road, we find ourselves successful and we've, after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, we have, earned the right to keep going and to build and those kinds of things. And round about then, we start to ask ourselves the question, why am I being successul? Because, you naturally kind of feel like somebody's going to try to steal your business.
Yeah.
And so if you figure out why you're successful, there becomes a better chance that you can continue to be successful.
Right.
So this question starts us down the whole journey of what are my skills? What are my unique aspects? What do I bring to the marketplace that's different than everybody else? Because as we know, the market tries to make you a commodity. It tries to make you just another, whatever you are. And so discovering your uniqueness settles that question that you are not a commodity. And understanding your story really helps that. And so what we end up doing, Deb especially, is talking to people. Why'd you start your business?
Right.
How did you get here? And where are you going from here?
Right.
And most people have really never thought about it. But once you figure out why your service or product is being successful, and it defines your story, and then you can market it successfully, and you can figure out where to take it next.
Right.
So that's just an introduction. We got a lot to talk about.
Yes. And finding what's working is usually what I tell people too. What is working and what part of that story is important.
Well, and then once you figure out what's working, trying to figure out why it works.
Yes. Yeah, that's important. And I still remember the day I came, we meet for coffee early in the morning, and I was frustrated. I said, so many people are just sitting on their skills, they're sitting on their resources, they're sitting on their experience. And that was the time when you said, that's it.
Yes.
That's that, because I had been kind of spinning my wheels a little bit, and I was, trying to define.
Debbie discovered her why.
I discovered
it was very powerful.
It was very, very powerful. And because it was just, I felt like people were discounting what they could really do, even if they were going to stay doing what they are doing with a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
But to enhance those and not be afraid to go into different ways. That's why I wrote A New Way of Doing Business. That's why I did that course, and that's why I'm, we'll probably put a book out about that coming up. But that is because there are different ways now, different methods we can add, but our purpose needs to be very, very strong still. That needs to be and why we're doing it, our uniqueness and why we're doing it is what sets us apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
purpose kind of revolves around your instincts a little bit. And let me tell a story. We have lots of stories.
Yes,
I'm just going to tell this one.
Yeah.
We've got friends that are in the roofing business, and you say, so what? Well, it's turned into a regional business, and the reason was the guy we know had family members in construction, and he wasn't necessarily interested in construction. He was more interested in figuring out how to network people together, and then he figured out that what his family members could use was some marketing, and then he figured out that generally people in the same business, they all could use marketing. So his first thought was what happens if I did the marketing for hundreds of individual contractors? And so he explored that a little bit, but then he came up with a niche, and that was in his area. If roofs were damaged, insurance companies had to pay for a completely new roof. Most consumers didn't understand that. So he suddenly figured out that if he could get people to look at their roofs, see that they're damaged, he could represent them to the insurance company, get the roof paid for free, get his roofers paid, increase the numbers of jobs they were doing, and everybody was happy. What he figured out, this is what his instinct was, his instinct was not that he was good at sales, but he was good at connecting the people that needed to know each other. In this case, the consumer, the insurance company, and the roofers.
Right.
And so he started this business, and it was, it succeeded over a 5 or 6 year period of time. And at that point is when he started to explore his why. Why am I doing this? And that's where he figured out what I'm good at isn't necessarily construction. It isn't necessarily sales. What I'm good at is seeing how the big picture comes together and I can make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And that is a story that you'll find in your life, lots of other people's lives, is that if your instincts got you started and they're kind of carrying you along the way, eventually you're going to need to ask yourself, why am I being successful?
Why?
And figuring out your why is what will help you grow and continue to be successful.
Yeah. It puts a fire under you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times when you're thinking, okay, we're asking ourselves those questions.
Yeah, and I think we've decided that the answering the why leads you into a purpose statement.
Yes, yeah.
And once you get a purpose statement, then you've got either rails or a box,
right?
But it's something that you can repeat over and over and over again,
right?
And the tragic thing is back in the 90s, purpose was like everybody was trying to come up with a purpose statement.
Yeah.
The problem is if you try to come up with a purpose statement until you figure out your why, it doesn't ignite you, it doesn't guide you.
Right.
It's just it's something you checked off, you hung on the wall, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
If you can figure out your instincts, what's been driving you, why do you think you're being successful, and you answer the why, now all of a sudden you can develop a purpose statement that will keep you moving in the right direction.
Boy, there's a couple really nuggets in there that I want to expand on a little bit.
Sure.
Number one, and I really liked what you were talking about with the roofing and the marketing, but part of that is a strategy is that you can put together, well, I need to educate these people. So that's part of your business plan. You need to educate people because they don't know that they can get a new roof. They don't know. Right. They don't understand that. And you take away that fear. The same thing is true. We have an interview coming out. I don't know if it's before or after this, but it's on tax. I think it's before, but on tax and taking away the fear because, there's a tax. There's a bill of rights for us as taxpayers. I have a certain amount of rights. We're so scared of everything.
Right.
So understanding that education is very, very important. And then I wanted to focus a little bit on, we're talking about purpose and mission. I put a lot of that together, purpose and mission. But, there was this big push when you mentioned the 90s also about, follow your passion.
Right.
Well, that's very important because part of that is going to be maybe instinctive, but to see actually what's working as well is really important part of that because just following your passion, how many people have I known being in the creative arts? I am really coming from those creative arts, being in music, being in art, and you're, okay, this is my passion. This is what I'm going to pursue now. Or I really want to pursue being now a yoga instructor. There's another one. Okay, so which is a very viable that's a very viable business, but you have to see what's going to work first. But what happens is, and I tell people, you better find out, do a lot of education around this. I just told somebody that has, someone going into, I want to be a graphic designer. I want to be an artist. I said, well, with AI, there's a lot of changes and you better understand, you better do the education behind that or you're going to be living in your car.
Which is the same reason you taught business to musicians.
Yeah. They should all major in business, actually. Right. They couldn't even put together a business plan. Right. And in fact, I didn't come from a background that made me do that. I got into that a lot more when I started pursuing even more running a speaking business and writing and all of that, because I was in the gig economy. I was getting gig after gig after gig. Right. I kept working. Yeah. But when I had to start teaching that and started doing more writing, I understood how important all of that is.
Yeah. Something we've discovered about passion is you tend to be passionate about things you're good at.
Yeah.
So, the general idea is find a field and become really good in that field, and then you'll discover that you'll become passionate. You're usually not passionate about something you're not very successful at.
Right.
So, a gift of administration can be successful in all sorts of different jobs.
Yeah.
So can a gift of leadership. So can a gift of sales or,
Right.
marketing.
Yeah.
But commit to becoming good at something.
Right.
And then you'll become passionate and eventually you become marketable.
Right. That's a great book about that. And maybe a lot of listeners have heard of this, but maybe some haven't. So Good They Can Ignore You by Cal Newport. Yeah. That is a great book about that.
Yeah, the book is so good they can't
ignore you. Yeah. And it talks about, Steve Martin's, the actor, and how he decided, how is he going to set himself apart? That is a very, very competitive field. And he just decided in a certain area, he was going to be so good, they just can't ignore him. And he is. So, but that was one of his guiding principles through there. And I think as we find that little area,
that kind of leads us to the whole discussion of uniqueness.
Yes. Yes.
Is, once you figured out your why, once you figured out, why you're successful and you develop a purpose, then start to figure out how can you bring to, a marketplace things that are unique.
Right. Right.
And the biggest unique factor is you.
Yes.
If you're being successful, your presence, your way of thinking about things, your way of presenting things is probably unique. And that's something you shouldn't discount.
Right. Right. And I've had to think through that myself, because all of a sudden when I came into, first of all, my shows that I did, music shows.
Right.
I did a show featuring Andrew Lloyd Webber and Gershwin. And my uniqueness was I could play all of it. I could sing all of it. I could arrange all of it, as a one-woman show. And then I expanded to do other areas too, with a double piano show, all of those things. But that was, as a writer as well, creative artist, and being able to do all of those, that was my uniqueness. And I had the money notes, the top and the low notes. And I'm not going to sing those for you right now. Thank you. But in this field of those with mid-career, halftime of life, what is my uniqueness? All of a sudden, when I started, I wrote the book, Women at Halftime, some 4 or 5 years ago now that I wrote that book. And when that came out, all of a sudden there were others hopping on, I'm going to talk about midlife. I'm going to talk about, well, what is my uniqueness?
Right.
What do I bring to the table? And you've asked me that as well. Well, I come from the background of being a creative as well. I know what it's like to be frustrated with tech.
Yep.
So I've learned tech. I'm able to help people with tech now, and not using too much tech, because you have to be able to not be overwhelmed by it, but using the right tools. And so that's part of what I help people with. Use the tech that's going to be user friendly for you, and be able to at least know enough to hire out. So those are the things, and put a system in place. So those are some of my unique points there that are not just, I'm just not talking about just the mindset but that's included. So there's not just that focus on a feel good. It is an actually active business.
And the reason you're able to do that is just because you've taken the time to step back.
Yes.
And without fear, evaluate your strengths and weaknesses and come up with what's unique. And
yes,
I think a lot of us are held back from that because we're fearful if I ask what's unique about me, that we come up with nothing.
Yeah.
And that is just not true.
Yeah.
But I bet if you ask yourself the question, what's unique about me, your knee-jerk reaction is to say, I can't think of a thing. And the more specific you can be, you need to be honest with yourself about not only your faults, but your strengths.
Yes.
And this is a time to ask yourself and to talk to yourself, what am I strong at? What do I do that most people can't do?
Right.
And, all of us have got that.
Right.
You just need to be fearless enough to be honest with yourself.
Right. What a great point that is, because yes, we do kind of discount. And I used to kind of beat myself up because I didn't have corporate experience.
We all did.
Yeah. I didn't have corporate experience. This is why when we talk about business, a lot of and once a month, and I bring in, especially with finances and all of that, it's nice. You've had corporate experience. I am an entrepreneur, a lifetime entrepreneur. but I've, beat myself up a little bit. Oh, maybe I don't have all that sort of experience. I have a ton of experience of just one of my strong strengths is persistent. And I get projects done. I push them out the door.
And never neglect the fact that you've reinvented yourself a couple of times.
Yes. Definitely. And I was just asked the other day, are you doing more composing? Well, I'd like to, but I'm really, really busy right now. I can't even put out more sheet music of things I've written, and it's because my schedule is fairly full.
Right.
But it really validates, I do have those skills. I keep my chops up. We talked about technique as well, and how important, some of those skills are. Don't neglect the skills that we already have, and keeping the guidelines of what we're doing. So,
yeah, we were talking about technique in the context of purpose.
Yeah.
And I was a baseball pitcher and Debbie was a pianist. And both of those skills require good technique and feel at the same time. And most entrepreneurs, because they're working off instinct, are working purely off feel. But what all good performers figure out is that when you're not feeling it, you can rely on your technique.
Right.
And technique is what makes things repeatable.
Yes.
And that's why we were talking about purpose. If you can move from instinct to why to purpose and figuring that out, then you'll be able to repeat and keep that balance between technique and feel.
Yeah. And part of the technique quotient here, and I kind of wanted to bring this up because of, with people afraid of tech, they're afraid of certain things, take away the fear. When something is repeatable, that it takes away a little bit of that fear. Keeping my chops up. In fact, the other day I was, thinking, I need to keep my chops up because I hadn't had to, play in a little bit. I had, been doing so many other things. So I sat at the piano, did scales and arpeggios. Well, that's not always pretty to listen to. Chromatics, 4 octaves, and then sixths and tenths, and doing all of those. But it makes it, and I was doing a little bit of instruction, all of that at the same time. But that's technique. It puts those boundaries. When I go to do things, then it's easier. It flows. So keeping up part of technique, I like to equate that with keeping our chops up, but also if you're an entrepreneur, small business, you need to be reading, you need to be growing in your mind, you need to be keeping all of those things moving ahead, journaling those thoughts, taking the time to do that and not discounting where you've already come, where you're going. You might be led a little bit different direction, but that instinct, the skills, the purpose, it all works together. So anyway, did you have any other comments on that?
No, I think
did I go down to too?
No, I think we covered it.
Didn't go down to too many rabbit trails. I can tend to, do that because my mind just
not me.
Here. Yeah, she was great. So, well, it's great to have you with me on those. So, but this has been, let's just sum this up a little bit for people. Let's do some takeaways.
Okay.
Takeaways would be, first of all, kind of see what's working, validate your skills. I think that is a big...
First, figure out what's working.
Yeah,
and then,
what's working.
And then 2, figure out why it's working.
Yeah. And those things, what, and then why. And then really spend some time validating that. And you can come up with, once you really understand why it's working and where you're going to go, you can start implementing more of a plan.
Well, and also somewhere in there, you would explore your uniqueness.
Yeah.
Both of your uniqueness as a person and your uniqueness as a business.
Right. And that's so very important in a flooded market. Otherwise, you'll just be commoditized.
Right.
And the more I listen to about startups, and they could be so easily commoditized. How do you break through?
You're right.
It's the same thing. And how does a song break through? None of us know this really total secret to that. There's a certain melody, there's a certain rhythm, something happens, but there's a uniqueness that you go away singing, and you go, that I just can't forget that. Well, all of a sudden, Yeah. So that's what we are coming up with. That's what we are striving for, is that sort of what makes you unique. Now, no, not everyone is going to have a unique look. They're not going to have a unique business. They're not going to have, but they're going to have something in there that is unique, some skill in there that's unique, some ability to market that's unique, some sort of platform that's unique. We think about the amount of platforms on AI right now, and I'm flooded with new startups all the time looking at those. Well, I already have, a certain amount of things that I will work with. I'm looking, I'm only looking usually for something else. But how is it unique from everything else? There's a lot of copycats out there.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you are going to be with that herd mentality and just a bunch of other copycats that are going to be commoditized. So don't be afraid of it. Be excited about it and validate who you are. If I can just encourage everyone listening here, you are special. You are unique. You are, there's something about you. Every person you walk around, go somewhere and look at the crowds of people, and you're going to go, oh, there's a lot of unique people here, a lot of different people, through there. So any final words that you would have?
Nope, you summed it up good.
Yeah, I think so. I think all of this was just very, very valuable. Hope you find this very encouraging, especially as this comes out at the end of the year, in looking at next year and evaluating where you are, validate who you are, validate your purpose, your uniqueness, and what's driving you, your instincts. Don't discount instincts. Be wise. Do your reading, do your study, have good technique, right? Have those boundaries, but don't discount some of those feelings that you have as well. Okay. Well, thank you. Make sure everyone clicks into getting our newsletters, of course, but halftimesuccess.com also. Make sure you check that out, because I started this whole Halftime Success because there were a lot of small businesses, mid-sized businesses, entrepreneurs who were struggling with the same thing I struggle with, is you need marketing, the word to get out. And can we band together with some great products and some great services and maybe things that you have not seen before or been familiar with? So I've started putting this together. It's been really fun. A lot of podcast guests that but setting it up as an affiliate. I work also with businesses, affiliates that I've worked with for years, that I'm very trusted. That is one of the requirements, a very trusted resource. So at least check them out, halftimesuccess.com, and our newsletter, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. And I will look forward to being with you next time. And Greg will be with me again next month. So fun. So thank you all again. And we'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. We'd love it if you'd share and follow us to not miss a single show, and even write a review. You can also find all of our articles, products, and links at womenathalftime.com.